On the same token, if you patiently and carefully listen to today's sermon, you shall learn the spiritual background and implications pertaining to the war that's happening in Israel. Come with me to 1 Samuel chapter 5 and let's read the first 5 verses one by one.
And the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod.
Aha! Now we are familiar with the name Ashdod, aren't we? Ashdod is situated in the south of Israel. And for the past few weeks, the Hamas organization sends rockets into Ashdod, Ashkelon. You see? In our sermon, now comes Ashdod. Later on will come Ashkelon. So what happens? The Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant and took it to one of their cities, namely Ashdod.
When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon.
You may have read about Dagon and you have never seen the fellow, no? Here, this is the guy.
And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again.
They brought the Ark of the Covenant and placed it inside the temple of Dagon. The next morning when they came and opened their doors, this huge statue was fallen in front of the ark. My goodness. Now they have straightened him up.
And when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him.
So the head was severed and it was there on its own, and the 2 hands were also severed. Right? Now that's very important to our story, right? Verse 5.
Therefore neither the priests of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day.
You know, I'm going to teach you who the Philistines were, who their biggest god, the head of the gods, Dagon, was. The Philistines were a people group who lived in the coastal area of southern Israel, where you would now see places like Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, and those places. These were a ferocious and yet a powerful people who were very strong in their precepts in religion and everything. They were really powerful. I'll tell you, they were very powerful. How powerful? I'm going to show you something. Remember, God took the people of Israel out of Egypt and took them into the promised land of Canaan. The trip would have lasted 40 days and 40 nights. But it took 40 years for them to come and reach the destination. We know several reasons as to why God elongated or prolonged their trip, and those reasons are correct. But I'm going to show you one other reason. May we read Exodus chapter 13 verses 17 and 18.
And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt.
If the people traveled through the lands of the Philistines, it would have been a shortcut. If these people travel along that way, they would see war in its ultimate ferocious form. If my people sees this kind of war, they'll run back to Egypt. Didn't the people of Israel encounter wars during the 40 years? Of course they did. They fought the Amalekites, they fought the Moabites, they fought the Ammonites. My goodness, they fought against so many people. They did fight against the Philistines, but not in Philistia. Outside. God did not take the people of Israel through Philistia because the Philistines were so powerful. Hey, you remember Goliath? He was a Philistine. It was the Philistines who were the only people who were able to capture the Ark of the Covenant from the hands of Israel. So they were the most powerful of all people that Israel ever encountered. In those days, they had a belief that if 2 groups of people fought each other, the gods of those 2 people groups were also fighting each other. Let's imagine the god of this side is X and the God of this side is Y. So if these two groups, X and Y, fight each other, it means that their gods, namely X and Y, are also fighting each other. So if these people were defeated, the X God was defeated by the Y God. So if the Israelites and the Philistines fought each other, it means that the God of Israel and the God of Philistines, namely Dagon, were fighting. So in that story we see Israel was defeated. What would both the groups of people believe? Well, Dagon has defeated Yahweh, the God of Israel. The reason why God let the people of Israel be defeated was to teach them a lesson and make them repent. But in doing so, in allowing so, his name was marred. How? Now everybody says Dagon is much more powerful than Yahweh. God decided, okay, I'll teach you a nice little lesson. So they placed the Ark of the Covenant in the temple of Dagon to see Dagon was fallen in front of the Ark of the Covenant. The next day they were all perturbed, confused. They were flabbergasted. How could this be? After all, our God defeated their God, but our God has fallen prostrate in front of their God. Something must have happened and this statue must have fallen. Let's re-erect it. So they erected it again. The next morning when they went, they saw their God fallen with the head being severed along with the two hands. Now the Philistines knew Yahweh, the God of Israel, is much more powerful than our fellow. What did they do? You can read along. I have taught this. They took the Ark of the Covenant from one city to the next to 5 different cities. When they placed the ark in one city, all the city dwellers are now getting piles and boils. Do you understand? They say, take this God away from here. So it's taken to a next city, same thing happens. We know that in 5 cities, the same thing happened. They placed the Ark of the Covenant in a new cart and they sent it away. By which time, now they know one thing. They realized, the Philistines realized, no matter how hard we beat the Israelites, our guy can never cause any harm to their God. So let's not mess with their God. Philistines constantly caused problems to Israel. And then, there were times when Philistines won. There were times when Israel won. David and Goliath. And all those stories. Around 500 years before Jesus came, the Persians waged war against the Philistines. And the Philistines were destroyed. And they were scattered. And Philistia ceased to exist. Now note this down. 2,500 years ago, 2,500 years ago, Philistines and Philistia were completely wiped off of the books of annals of history. They are gone. Then in AD 70, the Jews were kicked off from Israel. Remember that story? But not all Israelites fled. Some groups of young people remained in forests, mountains. They did not flee the land. Okay, in 132 BC, if you want, you can write this down and do a cross check to see if I am telling the truth. In 132 AD, okay, that was what? In AD 70 they were kicked out. Now we are talking about 132 AD. A Jewish guy called Shimon Bar Chova gathered about 12,000 young, valiant men and waged guerrilla warfare against the Roman emperor, Emperor Hadrian, who commenced his rule in 117 AD and ran all the way to 136 AD. Since it was during his time that Shimon Bar Chova revolted against Rome, Hadrian was very angry with them. Hey, listen. Those of you who know Roman history, Hadrian was not a bad guy. He was not like Nero, Caligula, Vespasian. He was a good emperor. Those of you who are not interested in history, those of you who don't know history, forget what I said. Shimon Bar Chovam kollapattar. அந்த 12,000 யூதர்களும் கொல்லப்பட்டார்கள். அவர்கள் After 4 years of the revolt, that was the third Jewish revolt against the Romans, right? Anyway, they were completely defeated. Shimon Bar Kokhba was killed, and all 12,000 men were either killed or taken prisoners. That was the end. Now Hadrian was still angry even after defeating them. So one day he summoned all his ministers. He said, "Hey ministers, give me a suggestion, give me an idea to permanently, inflict pain on the people of Jews." So they said, "Hey emperor, your grandfather Vespasian, he wiped them out. They're all scattered all over the world." So Hadrian said, if ever or whenever the Jews come back to their land, there must be something that's hurtful to them. So everybody was thinking. Hadrian himself devised an idea. Well, what was the name of their land? Israel or Judea? We will change the name. Let's name the country with a name that the Jews never liked. So who were their enemies? So people just gave name after name. Israel had enemies like Assyria, Babylonia, Media, Persia, Egypt, Jebusites, Amorites, parasites. Then he said, who were the more ferocious, ardent, strongest of all these people? Philistines. Hadrian said, rename the place as the land of Philistines, Palestine. We know that people called Palestinians live in Israel. They are not Philistines. They never descended from Philistines. They and Philistines have nothing to do with each other. But they exploit the naivety of the world populace in making them believe that they stemmed or they came from the Philistines. Now do you understand? It was the Arabs who later migrated into Israel who became the Palestinians. So now you know why the name changed. Shall we talk about this fellow now? Dagon. He's a merman. Okay. You know mermaid? Yes. Mermaid, He's a half fish and half man. If I am to give a lecture on Dagon, I will have to go to Genesis and I will have to talk about evolution, Darwinism, which claims all species originated in the water. Let's not get into all those things, right? Anyway, he was the father of Baal or Baal. The god of Canaan, Baal, against who people like Elijah and David fought. Baal or Baal was a big enough demon. Imagine Dagon to be the father of that fellow. This fellow must be much more powerful. Dagon was the first worshipped deity in Mesopotamia after the Tower of Babel incident. The wife of this fellow was Ashtaroth. What is another name for Ashtaroth? Semiramis. This is Nimrod. Can you believe? This is the Babylonian deity which started to work against the God of Israel. Although many nations worshipped Dagon, the Philistines made Dagon their main deity. I'm going to talk about Dagon versus Yahweh later on. But let me just remind you what happened in 1 Samuel chapter 5. Right in front of the Ark of the Covenant, the God of Israel, Dagon fell and his head was severed and his arms were severed. Philistines are not there, but their God, Dagon, his spirit is there. Satan is always there, right? The spirit of Babylon works even today, right? Many Christians are going to get upset with me. I'm telling you in advance, if you want to challenge me, hey Christians, what I'm going to tell you later on, if you want to challenge me, come, let's sit and talk, and I will defeat your ideologies through history and the Bible. The spirit of Dagon uses his stooges to behead people. If we look at Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and ISIS, we see that many of these terrorist organizations have a habit of beheading people. They are inflicted by the spirit of Dagon. This same spirit is so antagonistic against two groups of people. Who? The Jews and the Christians. Because they are the two groups of people who are worshipping the enemy of Dagon, namely Elohim Yahweh. So this demon makes those people capture Christians and Jews and tie their hands and behead them. The spirit is at work. You see that? And he wants to bring discontention between the Christians and the Israelites. Any Christian, any pastor, any man of God, any woman of God who is against Israel is of the spirit of Dagon. Yes, Israelites are doing bad things. I mean, they in fact attacked a church 2 days ago. We will not go against Israel. Let God deal with them. How does the spirit of Dagon come among Christians? Through believers? Through innocent Christians? No! The devil has enough minor stuff to cause problems among Christians. If the leaders are attacked, through the leaders, the entire Christendom can be attacked, right? Okay, look at the head of this Dagon. His face is a face of a man. But his head, an open mouth of a fish. Look at the head. The severed head of Dagon. Look at the cap of the bishop. You know, innocent Christians don't know how the spirits enter the churches. Still, we are under the impression that if we pass a cemetery, these demons come with us. You know, we still are so naive. We think, you know, there are little ways how the demons come. Let me tell you, yes, demons come in any way they can. Can you imagine if it happens through Bishop? I'll tell you something. Somebody spoke to me a few years ago. Pastor Suresh, you are doing a great ministry. You are well known throughout the world. They told me, we want to honor you by appointing you as a bishop. They were going to translate my head into the head of Dagon. If I explain this to them, would they understand? Would they believe? They honored you. They cloaked you with a raiment of a huge, with a jilpi. And they gave you a big staff with the hat. You know what has happened to you? Whoever is a bishop who is listening to me, you were okay, and the devil translated your head into the head of Dagon. You are possessed by the spirit of Dagon. The spirit of Dagon has entered the church under the guise of bishop. The spirit of Dagon is working against God and then against the people of God. Come with me to Joshua chapter 13 verse 1 onwards.
Now Joshua was old and stricken in years. And the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed.
Under the leadership of Joshua, 64 nations were captured along with 31 kings. But look at what God says.
This is the land that yet remaineth, all the borders of the Philistines, and all Geshuri, from Sihor, which is before Egypt, even unto the borders of Ekron. From Sihor, which is before Egypt, even unto the borders of Ekron.
Yeah.
Canaanite, Philistine, Gazathites, and Ashdothites, and Ashkelonites, the Gittites, and the Ekronites, also the Avites.
If you remove the it, it will be Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, right? Who dwell in places that are mentioned right here. Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron, all these places. Two groups of people, Israelites and Palestinians. Remember, today's Palestinians are not the Philistines. But today's Israelites are the real Israelites. Today, Dagon has captivated the Palestinians. Thus, the only similarity between the Palestinians and the Philistines is that the Philistines' god Dagon is the abstract god of today's Palestinians. What is the war that is happening in Israel? Not a war between Israel and Palestinians, Israel and Hamas, Israel and Islamic Jihad, Israel and Hezbollah. It's the war between Yahweh and Dagon. I'm asking you Christians, whose side are you? I love Palestinians. Now, Palestinian children are children. Palestinian women are women. Palestinian people are people. They are like us. They have feelings, they have hurts, they have blood, they have They have life. They need Jesus. In this war, if I stand with Israel, I'm standing with the God of Israel. If I stand on the side of the Palestinians or Hamas, then I'm standing with Dagon. So the problem is, are you with God or Dagon? The reason why many Christians don't stand with Israel, because they don't know. Okay, I'll teach you something. Let's talk about Samson and Delilah. So their story transpires long before 1 Samuel 5. Long before Dagon was seen fallen prostrate in front of the Ark of the Covenant. When Samson is born, he was not supposed to cut his hair. Because of his long hair, the power of God was on him. Don't come and ask me, why did God put his power on the hair? Ask him. Right? I don't know. If you discover, teach me also. Right? This guy Samson, he was weak when it comes to women. This fellow saw a Philistine woman in Timnah, comes and tells his parents, I want to marry that girl. Now the parents say, come on, flipping it. You are not supposed to marry heathen women, but he said, no, I want to marry. Okay, so they three are going to Timnah to arrange the proposal. And daddy were walking slow. Daddy's name was Manoah. Mr. Manoah and Mrs. Manoah were walking slow. Old people, no? This fellow, he wanted to go quick, so he was hasty. He was going very fast, and he encountered a lion. Since he was a powerful guy, he ripped the lion off with his two hands, and he threw the carcass onto a side, and he proceeded. He didn't say this to anybody. On his way back, he went to see what happened to the carcass. Some bees had built a hive, and this fellow saw, wow, a beehive in the carcass of the lion. So he took some honey and ate and went his way. They're having a lunch together. He is now giving them a riddle. Sweetness comes out of the strong one. What is the meaning? If you unravel the riddle, I shall buy you 30 new attire, 30 new raiments. And then if you don't, you all must give me an attire each. So I will get 30 pieces of wonderful raiment. The party happens for 7 days. After the third day, somehow do something to him, entice him, and somehow get the explanation out and relay it to us. So this girl did it. She for 4 days, she was constantly, pricking him to tell her, tell only to me, I am your honey, So this woman made Samson to divulge the detail, and she relayed it to the 30 blokes. And then they said, we know the meaning. Who is stronger than a lion? And what is sweeter than honey? He said, okay, you took my plow and you plowed my land. Okay. He was so angered, he went to Ashkelon. So he went and slew 30 Philistines, took their garments and came and gave this to these fellows, and he went back home without the wife. He married, but then he didn't take because he was so busy being angry. And then, after some time, his anger subsided. Anyway, she's my wife now after all. So he got a little kid, a little lamb, and he's now going to bring her back. That man, the father fellow, gave his daughter in marriage to one of those 30 best men. Anyway, so this is the feud between Samson and the Philistines. I will teach Judges chapter 13 some other day, where Manoah and his wife were visited by the angel of the Lord, and so on and so forth. If you go to chapter 14, you will see the story that I told you about him finding a girl in Timnah. Look at verse 19.
And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house.
So look at today's Ashdod, Ashkelon. Indraikulla Ashdod, Ashkelon ellam paranga. Who live in those places like Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron, all these places? Who? Israelites in kibbutz. How would Dagon feel? Because those were the places where he was worshipped. It wouldn't have upset the spirit of Dagon if any people came there and worshipped any god. But who are there? The people of Israel. Worshipping who? His enemy, the God of Israel. When he looks at Gaza, he knows that the Philistines are not there. It's a different group of people. But he knows that they are not worshipping the God of Israel. So he possesses the Hamas. So the Hamas is constantly sending missile, rocket after rocket into those places. Now you see why. Now let me tell you something. They are not only doing that, they are sending helium balloons with petrol bombs tied onto them. You know, when those helium balloons land on the dry fields ready for harvest, the wheat fields, the vineyards and the olive groves, they burn. Do you understand? Do you know why? When Samson goes and sees that his wife has been given to one of his best men, what does he do? Let's read. Let's read from 15 verse 1.
And it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid. And he said, I will go in to my wife into the chamber. But her father would not suffer him to go in. And her father said, I verily thought that thou hadst utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. And Samson said concerning them, Now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took firebrands, and turned tail to tail, and put a firebrand in the midst between two tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burnt up both the shocks and also the standing corn with the vineyards and olives.
Why did Samson tie fire? What are they? Fire jilpis onto the tails of the foxes? Because he didn't have helium balloons. So look. Hamas is not taking revenge. What is the meaning of the name Dagon? Grain. I am the God of the ocean, fish, and I am the God of agriculture. When Samson did this, it was a direct blow to Dagon. You know, Israelites are cultivating in the same location since 1948. So the spirit of Dagon is using Hamas to take revenge for what Samson did. Can you see that? Don't you see how pathetic Dagon is? Philistines, 1,000 Philistines come to capture Samson. They are not able to do that. Now they are going to destroy a Jewish town.
Then the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah, and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why are ye come up against us? And they answered, To bind Samson, and we come up to do to him as he hath done to us.
But the Philistines were not able to capture Samson, so they go against an innocent Jewish village. Wasn't that what happened 2 weeks ago? History repeats itself. When Hamas was unable to attack IDF direct, they go into Jewish kibbutzim and they attack innocent people. The Jews say, Don't attack us. We will give you Samson. We'll capture him. Just like that, today there are some Jews who are against Benjamin Netanyahu and who say, Stop the war, stop everything. Do you understand? The same thing. You know, you tie me with new cords and present me. Hand me over to the Philistines. Since you are our man, we are not going to kill you. We will tie your hands and we will hand you over to the Philistines. Tie your hands. Dagon. Hands. So we will just tie your hands. Beheading you, they will take care of it. Very happy. The Philistines were so happy. But you know what Samson did? Just broke the cords away. Found a jawbone of a donkey. With that jawbone, he smote 1,000 Philistines. This is going to happen in Israel. You know, United Nations, Iran, Iraq, Russia, all these people, peace lovers, try to tie the hands of Israel, saying, No, we are going to hand over you to the peace talks. Samson's God is the God of Israel. You will watch on the news the bash that the people of Samson is going to give unto them. The final episode of the story transpires in chapter 16. I don't have to time to go into detail.
Then went Samson.
Come on, where does he
बोल
go?
दिए
Gaza!
Then went Samson to Gaza and saw there an harlot and went in unto her.
I want to show you something very important. Delilah was that harlot. It was that whore who laid Samson on her lap and asks him, tell me, how are you getting your power, strength? 3 times he deceives her. Thrice he was able to deceive her, but then he had to spill the beans. He finally says, if you cut my hair. So she makes a servant cut his hair and hands him over to her people. They gouge his eyes and they bind him and then take him away and make him grind flour. I told you last Sunday why God allowed the Gazans to come, the Hamas to come and attack the kibbutz. Spiritual adultery. They were bringing idols of other gods and they were partying over spiritual harlotry. Just like his whoredom, that God allowed him to be captivated by the Philistines. God allowed the Israelites to be attacked by the Hamas because of their spiritual whoredom. But what happened in the story? Whilst inside Gaza, Samson's hair kept growing. He regained his strength. He was able to destroy the Philistines who were there in a huge esplanade by bringing down the entire structure because of his power. In his death, he slew more Philistines than when he was alive. The spirit of Dagon is still at work, so we must pray for Israel to not indulge in spiritual harlotry. To pray that the Palestinians and the Hamas terrorists, they are humans. They are under the possession and obsession of Dagon. We need to pray for them to be delivered from that spirit. Many Christians unknowingly, ignorantly and naively are supporting the spirit of Dagon. And I think you all know a lot better than last week as to what's happening there now. We are on the side of the God of Israel, and therefore we will be for Israel.